It is Tuesday, it's like 8:33. Let's call this meeting to order. Thank you. The first item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment today? All right, seeing none. Our next item is approval of the minutes. I hope you all had a chance to review the minutes from our May 10 meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved in support? All right, any questions, comments, things to add or remove? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Our next item comes from the IT department. We have a performance measurement review. We have Tim Beck here today. He has given us a PowerPoint and also a packet of information. Thanks for joining us, Tim.
Good morning. Thank you so much. As we get started this morning, I think we'll just jump right in here. Appreciate the opportunity to spend a few minutes this morning letting everybody know what we're up to, what we're scheming, and where we're headed next. So without further ado here, we won't stray too far from the normal agenda. I think that everybody is see here alignment with board priorities, strategic goals, performance metrics, accomplishments. We'll stick pretty close to that. So the mission of the IT department, provide responsive, customer-focused service, I guess is the best way to say it. We want to make sure other departments are able to achieve what they need to do. So that is really our mission. So as we really look at that, as it lines up against the Kent County Strategic Plan, excellence in service delivery is really where we see ourselves. It tucks in pretty nicely there. We touch in other areas, but I think for the most part, that's where we live on a daily basis. When we look at it a little bit more tactically, I think down at the IT level, we've got a number of functional work groups. We have our service desk, our network group, our security groups, applications group, systems, and they all have their individual mission statements. And I think sometimes, I'm in IT, we can overcomplicate anything. But at the end of the day, when we distill all of that down, really what we're trying to do is right there in front of you. We are trying to get the right people access to the right data, the right application. We want to do it securely. We want to make sure it's easy for them to do. And we want to make sure it's on a device on our network that we know about. So we kind of distill down, like I said, to that. All right, IT by the numbers, the tail of the tape. So really the intent of this slide is to show a little bit about scope of IT. If you're not overly familiar with it, we have 38 people on staff. The average tenure of that staff is 15 years. In fact, we had one gentleman retire just last Friday who was here for 29 years. So a well-seasoned crew. We have about 2,300 endpoints on our network that we manage of all variations, laptops, desktops. Servers supported in our data centers. We have 2 data centers. We support about 320 some servers, many of which are virtualized, which means it's kind of a many to one, so they're not all physical. But pretty good number, 341 network devices. These are wireless access points. These are switches, things like that spread across the county. 52 external connections. Those are connections to state, federal resources, other municipalities, vendor support, basically not a county connection, but something else that we manage that is connecting to us for various reasons. Databases supported, 440 some, primarily SQL and a little bit of Oracle. Onbase is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Onbase is our document management system, and just as kind of a data point here, in 2020 we had about 8.5 million documents stored in Onbase. In 2021 that number jumped to 9.1 million, which is about 6% growth. And when you do the math, you kind of do the math on that, that's about 5,500 pounds of paper that we are not storing. So no file cabinet space, no physical hard copies of paper. So, and that's kind of a conservative number in the sense that I'm assuming one document in Onbase is one piece of paper. Many of our documents in Onbase are multiple pages. So it's not uncommon to have a document that's 20, 30 pages. So that's a conservative number, but I think it just goes to show that as we move more toward that paperless initiative across the county, there's a huge savings in floor space, in paper, things of that nature. So we're glad to see that, and I would easily see that number to be over 10 million next year. So, and with all of that comes the need to compress it and store it and do all the good things with it. So we do some pretty cool things with compression algorithms and things like that on the back end to make sure that we can store it, retrieve it, and manage it well. So, and then lastly there on the bottom, date and time recovery. A lot of talk about ransomware. Everybody's seen it in the media, things of that nature, but reality is for us, while we have lots of document retention that go well past 12 months, they can go back 99 years. For the most part, on a daily basis, daily operational tasks, pick a day, pick a month, we can get back 12 months. So, moving on. All right, the fiber footprint. So this is an interesting slide. I guess literally it's a 30,000 foot look. But the fiber footprint here, the intent of this slide is really just to show, as we connect county facilities, whether it's in the downtown area here, the new North County property going down to the south substation, how do we get there? And again, the intent of this is to kind of show that at a high level, but at the same time show that we don't do it all ourselves, in the sense that a lot of collaboration goes in. So in terms of the county footprint, there's three primary players. The bright green there is county-owned fiber. We own it, we manage it. If you look at the bright blue, that is the MDOT, what we call the MDOT ring, kind of going down 96, M6, kind of that ring there. We lease fiber from them, which gives us connections to a lot of different areas that are parks, Kaufman Golf Course, South Sub, used to be the zoo, used to be the airport, those types of things. And then lastly, the red line there, KISD, that's an interesting one. That's how we're getting up to the new North County property. So it's interesting, we shared the same enthusiasm that, yep, that's great, let's build a new North County property. But then there was a moment of panic when we said, what are we gonna connect it to? Because we don't have anything up there. So, but great partnerships with area organizations. We're partnering with KISD, they're leasing us a little bit of fiber to get up there. And they just recently underwent a huge fiber build out, North Kent County, and had plenty of dark fiber. So it is always an interesting, if you look in the downtown area here, kind of that bright green square, there's always this undercurrent of conversation that I think is underestimated. Somebody's always trying to get somewhere. So when you look at whether it's private education, how do people connect in downtown area? This is something that's not highly publicized a lot. There's always phones ringing, emails being sent, hey, I gotta get from here to there. Do you have anything? And that's nice. It's a great way to do business. These types of things are structured in a variety of different governance models, whether it's a formal memo of understanding, actual contract language. Some of it is a handshake. And some of it is because it went back 20 years and everybody retired since then, nobody can find anything. So it's really, I'll call it a pleasant mix of how we connect with municipalities, how they connect with us. It's a great way to do business. So, all right, moving on a little bit, talking about key performance metrics. One of them is system uptime. So we talked about 325 servers a couple slides ago and what that means. So applications we host on-premise, how often are they available to staff? We strive for 99% of the time, and consistently we are seeing 99.95%. So if you look at the kind of the bottom bullet points, those are the relevant ones. How do we measure downtime? It's in minutes, frankly, on a monthly basis. So, and that doesn't include routine or planned downtime for system patching or something else. So we're pleased with that, but happy to make things available to folks. I think the one metric that starts to change this is the move toward cloud services, and what does that mean from an uptime perspective, because we don't track that in this specific metric. So one of the things we are always looking at is how should we be measuring ourselves differently. This is a metric that starts to bring that into conversation a little bit. Looking at our service desk, the service desk is the area, the first line of defense. This is who you call when people have trouble, when you can't print, can't log in, something to that effect. This is who you contact. And so they get about 1,300 requests a month for service, which is a pretty good number. And we can meet our SLA, 88% of the time. So the SLA is basically that agreed upon amount of time in which we're going to respond to it and we're going to resolve it. So we strive for 90, we sit at 88% pretty consistently. A lot of that simply is because the amount of requests that we're getting in are very complex. It's not necessarily, I need to change my password. The service desk provides support for courts, courtroom technology, so a lot more complex things than just your standard can't change my password, that type of basic call. So, in a pretty good volume, 1,300 a month, like I said, so. Moving on to IT security, we're going to talk a little bit more about IT security in the upcoming slides, but one of the metrics that we measure ourselves on is email phishing and how prone are county staff to click on something bad. And so we have an awareness campaign through a platform called Know Before, and we basically send out emails that are fairly customized. It's not obvious that it's an attempt to scam you. It could appear to come from a legitimate county department, but something about it just doesn't look quite right. So how often are people likely to click on that? Back in 2018, that metric has fallen off the slide. We were at about 26%. So 25 out of 100 of county staff would actually click on something bad. We've consistently seen that down. In 2021, we ended up at 4.2%. So a pretty substantial decline. And the way that program works is if you click on it and it's wrong, it takes you through a little tutorial that tells you why it was wrong and helps you improve next time. So we look at that. We reach out to those folks that are the frequent flyers that kind of do the wrong thing more often and work with them individually. But so it's a bit of a manual effort, but we've consistently seen that number go down, and we're pleased with that. So we do believe that email phishing and email spear phishing continues to be the #1 vector for IT security. So we want to hover right around 5%, and we're under that. We'll continue this. We make it harder. So that's why we're going to tick back up to 5%. We continue to make this a little bit harder for people and challenge them a little bit more. So, and if you're interested, the #1 bad thing people click on is free food. So. All right, the website Access Kent. I wanted to touch on this. We have a great relationship with WebTex, who is the third party responsible for our development. We host the environment, they host, and they develop the application. But we really want to see that unique visitor traffic increasing on an annual basis. And if you look there, in 2019, we were about 3.7 million. That number jumped dramatically in 2020 to 5.7 million, largely because of the COVID. And we stood up Vaccinate West Michigan Back to Work. Those websites were also hosted there. So we saw that dramatic jump in 2020. So in 2021, that number has come down slightly. We believe that's really just normalizing and getting back to where we were. So if you take out 2020 as kind of the outlier, pretty good website increase between 2021 and 2019. So we're anxious to continue to have that go up. Some of the other reasons, we've made various improvements to online payment services that are encouraging people to do more business with us online. We moved the Parks website back underneath the Access Kent and WebTex model just this spring. So I think that has helped as well, and we continue to see some growth. So at some point, I know there's a huge project to re-architect Access Kent and take a look at what that means, and that should only help these numbers go up, I think. But clearly a fair amount of use there. And then lastly, the last bullet on that slide is interesting. We continue to see the majority of our website traffic coming from mobile or tablet devices, so primarily smartphones. So how does mobility fit into that redesign will be key for us. All right, a few significant accomplishments here. Talking about IT security again real quick. Multi-factor authentication is a fancy term for something you have and something you know. And people are doing this already if you do online banking, you schedule your online health appointments, those types of things. It's that verification. You say you're Tim. Are you really that person? And so what we've done is deployed an identity management platform called Okta. And we did that in the fourth quarter of last year, and Astral had people enroll in that, right? So for things like Office 365 and now other applications, we do have that second check in place to verify you are who you say you are, which is something that is needed from an IT security perspective. It allows us to do some single sign-on, so there's not as many passwords to remember, and something that really starts to change the landscape, I think, from an organizational perspective. So we are pleased with that. That was a huge lift. It touched everybody in the county. A couple of other things on the IT security front there. Every year we do an annual penetration test, which means that we engage with a third party that comes in from the outside, tries to hack their way into our network. And so that's one element of that test. The second test is we let them in and we assume that they did get in. What could they actually get access to? And so we take a look at that report and we remediate that. So when you look at that year after year, there is a measurable risk reduction that we have seen as a result of that. So it is money well spent, it is effort well spent. It is one of the things that gives us increased confidence in our security posture. DocuSign, electronic signature. This is something that we were really interested in doing, is starting to do electronic signatures. And we've done that now for 15 departments that are using them, including public-facing departments like KCCA are also distributing forms that need signature electronically and collecting them electronically, which is a huge customer service perspective. And then dealing with a couple of folks that actually don't want electronic signatures and want things mailed to them. But so there's both sides of that coin, but we're excited that we're doing this and hope that will continue to expand. More recently, I think I've talked in here certainly about the new phone system for a couple of years. We finally got it done. So our 20-year-old phone system is gone. Well, it's still physically turned on, but nobody's on it. Just before Memorial Day, we switched over to the Sheriff's Department. They were the last department. So the entire county now is on a cloud-based phone system called Ring Central. And one of the huge benefits to this is that it's your phone anywhere. So your 632 county number can ring anywhere we want it to. You can put the app on your mobile phone. You can use the software on your laptop. You can have a hard phone if you want. But one of the big benefits is that your phone follows you, what we call single reach. And so that is huge for people that are engaging in flexible work, after hours, those types of things. That 632 number will ring if they want it to. It's configurable, but it'll ring and they don't have to give out a mobile phone number. Hopefully this will reduce mobile phones across the county and the need for those, and really provides new opportunities for engagement as we look at the next steps of that, which is engaging with clients via SMS texting if that's the way they want to do it. Just one of those things that I don't think we fully appreciated its capabilities until we actually started getting into the weeds a little bit with it. But again, another huge lift. This is one of the few things that touched everybody in the county. And you can't believe, frankly, the 20-year-old phone system, it's amazing how many business processes are wrapped around that phone system. When you think about call trees, menus, call routing in departments, untangling all of that and then modernizing it and moving it to a new system was a huge lift. So we are happy to be in the waning stages of that one. Back to disaster recovery failover testing a little bit. In fourth quarter last year, we did do a disaster recovery failover between data centers, testing our storage failover and the recovery capability. So how fast can we fail over between data centers and how fast can we recover if there is a major event? So, and it's a matter of a few hours. So we were pleased with that. That is an annual thing we do. But we had made some changes in our storage and pleased to see it works as intended. So. And then lastly, audits and regulatory compliance support is something that is just part of our ongoing cadence now. Whether it's a criminal justice audit that we participate in, whether it's IRS, whether it's FOC, it's just part of daily life now is going through these and providing support for those. So it's a lift for us on the IT security side because there's increasingly a technical focus to those, but it makes us better. It dives right in or blends in with our IT security initiative, so it works, but it's a pretty heavy lift. But it's not an accomplishment, I think, as much as just the honest reality. It's here to stay. So as we look ahead a little bit, one of the interesting projects we're working on is jail management system replacement. The current jail management system is by far the most complex thing that we run in IT. It's also the oldest thing we run in IT. And so those two things don't always play well together. So we are looking forward to going live on their new platform. A lot of interface development, a lot of support, but we'll talk about legacy technology on the next slide, I think. But looking forward to that one. Across the county, we're engaged in 40+ system integration projects we're tracking. Many departments now have an emphasis on data analytics and automation and trying to automate dashboarding, displays of data, those types of things, automating manually intensive processes that are very repetitive. So there's a lot of demand for that. So we are starting to take some heavy looks at that. Very similarly, Sharepoint Development on our Microsoft platform. Office 365 is our major email and calendaring platform, but it has a ton of collaboration capabilities when we talk about SharePoint, OneDrive, some of the other technologies that are out there. How do we leverage those? How do we use those? Kind of what's the strategy for doing it in a manner that makes sense but doesn't become the Wild West, so to speak. So we are working on that. IT security improvements will continue. We've got 2 exciting ones coming up. The BitClass, which is really cloud security. And BitClass has the ability, as we move toward the cloud more and more, and data moves between the cloud and doesn't pass through the county, what is that data? And what are they doing with it? So BitClass allows us to examine, put rules around that data so we have an idea of what the heck is going on out there. It also has the ability to assist users in doing the right things, so that if you're doing things like sending an email and you put a social security number in that email, it will catch that and say, are you sure you want to do that? Just kind of that reminder that it's tracking security or data security movement across the county. So that one is just getting off the ground now. Mobile device management, we still have well over 600 mobile devices out there in terms of smartphones. As people desire more mobility, putting email on their phones, accessing applications on their phones, how do we secure those? And make sure that we're doing the right things from FOIA perspective, from security perspectives, you name it. Mobile device management is where we need to be. We will continue our implementation of archival and automating workflow processes in Onbase. I threw an example in there. The personal protection order process will be completely paperless in just a couple months. That means they are received and filed electronically through Onbase. There's digital timestamps, digital signatures. The entire process is entirely paperless. And that's one of their more heavily used processes. So we are pleased to get that one. And then moving on, we'll be able to reuse a lot of the same elements of that. I think they want to look at divorce next. So. And then lastly, we launched an internship program, relaunched, I should say. Since my tenure here, we have not had an IT internship program in our department, but we are excited to get that back off the ground. And so Roman, who is sitting behind us here, just started last week. So excited to have him on board and start to pay it forward and see what he can provide us. So requisite challenges, of course. Technology debt. Technology debt is that thing. I talked about legacy JailView, the old JailView system. These are systems that are older. Technology has moved on, and they take a lot of care and feeding. So it's a lot of staff time. It's a lot of conversations. It's a lot of discussions about, hey, how are we going to deal with this? And it's frustrating at times. So we understand it, it's there, but how do we move past it? Our phone system was a great example of eliminating technology debt. So as we replace the jail management system, again, replacing some of that technology debt. So, but there's still a fair amount of other stuff across the county we are working on weeding out. So, what else? Incoming work clearly is outpacing our existing capacity. Technology is becoming available quicker. It moves on a faster timeline as far as versions, functionality, feature sets go. We talked about SharePoint, OneDrive, some of the Microsoft things. We use the term perfection as the enemy of good enough. We're to the point where if we try to make something perfect, we're never going to get there. We need to get work off our plate and free up capacity. So we've kind of started to fall back to the good enough analogy that good enough. So. IT security landscape will continue to expand, we know that. It's interesting this year, there was increased scrutiny in IT security in a couple of different areas that we hadn't seen before. As the county works through insurance renewals, we now had to provide documentation about what are we doing from an IT security perspective and portfolio, and also for the rating agencies. They had inquired about, can we provide them some documentation and information on how do you manage your IT security? So those are 2 areas this year that are new for us. And won't expect that to go away. And increasingly, it used to be tell me what you're doing, provide me a memo, those types of things. Now it's becoming show me. And so there's a little bit more detail and effort needed behind some of those requests. And emerging vectors, I said earlier, end users are still our number one threat, somebody accidentally doing the wrong thing. But there are also other vectors out there like industrial control systems that we are worried about. And these are door card systems, camera systems, those types of things that historically are installed and then just kind of left alone. They're not routinely patched. Vendor support could be a little spotty, isn't their sweet spot. So there's more and more, as we stay engaged with our various IT security partners, concern about industrial control systems, and they touch our networks. So we're concerned about those. Increasing complexity of system integration. Yep, there's the quote, everything needs to connect to everything all the time, I should have added. And so it's not just this system, it's this system that also has to talk to this system, which also has to talk to this system. So as you get into more data analytics and data sharing, those types of things will continue. And then lastly, unfortunately, the state and SCAO are very unclear and very vague on some of their objectives as it relates to us being able to make effective decisions. And our peers wrestle with this. It's not unique to Kent County, but as we look at our roadmaps for CourtView, which is our major court management application, what do we do with it? When do we do it? When do we request funding? Simply because they are very unclear on where they're going to go. And it's a complicated topic, to be fair. So, but that is one of our challenges on one of our major platforms coming up. All right, to the acknowledgements. I would be remiss certainly to not acknowledge the folks that get this stuff done. So IT has got a great staff, a great leadership. A few of us are here this morning. We've got a culture in IT that we try not to take ourselves too seriously, but we take what we do very seriously. And I think that is a culture that has resulted in continued success. I think it works well for the folks we have. Our folks stick around for a long time, as I've talked about. And so I'm pleased with the culture. I'm pleased with the direction. These guys make it happen. County leadership and department directors, you know, it's interesting when you look at county leadership across, county leadership is becoming increasingly technical. These are almost IT people in some regards, right? They're increasingly technical. They get data, they get interfaces, they get development, they get all of this. And that makes our job a little bit easier. And so we appreciate that. We appreciate the grace they give us, the empathy they extend us when they look at our workloads. It's just always been a great working relationship. So as an administrative service, IT tries to stitch all of these departments together in some capacity, and we struggle with that on a daily basis. But we're blessed to have the leadership we do and appreciate working with them very much. So, and then lastly, county staff. I referenced a couple of major projects when it was Okta for multi-factor authentication, the new phone system. We have asked county staff to do more in the last couple of years, not related to even to the pandemic, frankly. We've asked them to do more, to adopt more, to change quicker, and they've done that. And that has been a challenge for staff, and we recognize that, and we appreciate that, and we are happy to come alongside them and work through it. And we always try to make sure, hey, when we propose something, how is it going to work for them? And is it something that is really going to benefit them? And if it is not going to benefit them, but we need to do it, how do we change it so it does benefit them? So, but we appreciate a really disparate county staff and their ability to come alongside us and make sure this stuff happens. If you look at the email awareness, back to that 4.2 number for email phishing prone, they get it too. We used to say IT security was a team sport, and it is, but really IT in general these days has become a team sport when you look at some of what we've done. So that is it for me this morning, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Tim. Thanks for the insight, and this department definitely impacts, you know, everything countywide, so there's lots of details that go into it. So I assume that there's probably some questions or comments. Commissioner Ponstein?
Thank you, Chair Breedy. Tim, thanks for being here today. In the best of world, I could never imagine having a job like you. So I got just two quick questions. First of all, you highlighted the average tenure of 15 years. Congratulations, that says a lot about the department. So going forward, I always hear that there's a shortage of IT professionals out there to hire. As that age gets older and retires, what does it look for our recruitment, and how do we find these people? Is this a four-year liberal arts degree, or are these just tech degrees?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up. I think there's a couple of different elements to that answer. One is I think we continue to challenge staff with the things that we can do. It starts certainly at the recruiting stage, no doubt. But I think as the offering of things like flexible work to keep people interested. I think that's part of it. But I think, when we look at some of the projects we're doing, we invite people to work outside their normal job description. And I think that challenges them a little bit to do things they don't do on a normal daily basis. So I think that helps them stay engaged, learn some different things, work in different areas of IT to expand their horizons a little bit. And I'll be honest, I think that maybe we haven't, quite honestly, seen the impact yet. I think at some point we will face the same labor issues that everybody else has. That's absolutely true. But the other thing that I think we need to address from a recruitment standpoint is the technical days are largely over when we look at cloud computing and things like that. We are starting to find ourselves more in the business arena than the technical arena when we talk about system integration. And so from a recruitment retention standpoint, I think when people either choose to retire or leave for whatever reason, I think the replacement of that takes a little different look now. I think it looks a little bit different just based on where we're headed over the last couple of years. So.
Okay, and then just a second question. You had highlighted in 2021 your 6% growth, and it's equivalent to 5,500 pounds of paper. When we made this transition to go paperless and how we store things, is there a cost that can be assigned to that of what we saved? But then on the other side, there's equipment we had to buy and software to upgrade. Is it a wash? Is it, obviously it's more efficient. It might not be cost-wise, but where is all this stuff if it's not in file cabinets and paper? And how many file cabinets with paper in it do we still have?
Well, I think we've all seen the pictures of the CARC, right? The archival place where records live. I think that it's a difficult question to answer because there's the hard cost. We have to buy storage to put things on. That's easy. Or we lease space to store files or whatever it might be. Those hard costs are easier to identify. The soft cost, I think, is harder to identify, but possibly the most attractive. And that is really that file is online and can be checked out now. Somebody doesn't have to track down who had the file last and track it around the courtroom. Those types of things. Or the efficiency that staff have gained by, hey, if PPOs are electronically filed and received, that staff person is freed up to do something else. I think that's the soft cost that is more interesting to us organizationally than the hard cost. The hard costs, I think, just fall into line naturally because as you gain that leverage of more and more people are doing it, the cost is just lesser for everybody. I hope that answers your question. A couple of years ago, there were discussions about having a county-wide approach to this going paperless, and it was in the millions of dollars. And I think one of the things we struggled with is unpacking that $1 million to figure out how accurate is that cost really, or do we just kind of let this thing continue to grow organically like we've done and grow through kind of that traction process, which has been pretty successful as we share these stories with other departments. So, you're welcome.
All right, Commissioner LeGrand.
Hi, thanks for the report. You brought up a term that I've not heard before, and I'm quite fascinated with it. What is spear phishing exactly?
So spear phishing is a email scamming attempt that is designed to target you specifically. So for example, if I compromised an account and I found out that Commissioner LeGrand was involved in a financial matter of some sort, I could start to email you directly referencing a specific topic and try to scam you specifically using personal information I've gleaned from you. And that way it appears to be personally directed. You might have more comfort level to do the wrong thing because we appear to maybe know each other, maybe not, that type of thing. But it's not a broad, hey, there's free food in the break room, click here, right? That's phishing. Spear phishing is, hey, Commissioner LeGrand, can you approve this invoice for XYZ? That type of more personalized attack. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Now, can we go back to when you referred to that in your report and what exactly were you saying? Now that I know what it is. When you were talking about, security.
Well, phishing is the broader term, but we have seen specific spear phishing attempts across the county.
You have? Okay.
Absolutely, we have. And really, it's really but through the awareness program that people have said, this doesn't sound quite right. I don't recognize this person. The language in this email doesn't sound right. I know this individual. He doesn't ever sign his emails respectfully. You know, that, right, that type of awareness is really what we're looking for. So,
Okay, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Kallman, I feel like this is right up your alley.
It is. Thank you for the presentation. Could spend a lot of time, chatting about this, but I'm sure,
anytime you want, Commissioner.
for everybody here. But, so a couple just specific questions. First, I guess a request. I think it'd be interesting for commissioners to see any of the metrics and analytics we have on Access Kent, just from the standpoint of like devices. I saw some of the high-level statistics, but devices, like where, traffic is coming from, inside the county, outside the county, that kind of information. No particular rush, but I think it'd be helpful for us to see some of that.
Okay, we can work some, we use Google Analytics, and so they capture a lot, right? So it's just a
Yeah.
matter of putting it into some interpretive form. But yeah, we can certainly look at that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yep.
And then just two specific questions. One, on the penetration testing, is it purely digital, or do we also do physical? And then the second question is, does the county have cyber insurance?
To answer your second question, yes, the county does have considerable cyber insurance. And part of our annual renewal of that is providing results of these to show that we are trying to improve our posture. So, as it relates to the actual penetration itself, there's a couple of different moving parts to that. Part of it is digital, absolutely. In the past, they've also done social engineering where they physically call departments and try to get information. In the past, they've dropped thumb drives in parking lots to see if somebody would plug something in. Like, oh, I found a thumb drive in the 82 Ionia parking lot. I'm gonna plug it in and see what's on it. So they've tried various things. These guys are pretty good. It's not your Tuesday night bowling league. These guys are pretty good. So, you're welcome.
All right, any further questions or comments for IT? All right, seeing none, thanks for joining us today,
You're
Tim,
welcome.
and
Thank
thanks for
you.
the report. Next item on the agenda comes from Human Resources, and we have another performance measurement review. And Amy Rolston is here to present to us today.
Good morning. Looks like I'm aligned pretty well with the microphone here. Well, I have the unfortunate honor of going after Tim, who is a tough act to follow, but I will do my best. So thank you for inviting me today to present on the performance metrics for human resources. As is the case typically with these presentations, my presentation will touch on all of the elements listed here: alignment of HR's priorities with the board, strategic goals of HR, key performance metrics, significant accomplishments, and look ahead. This is a snapshot of the Human Resources Department. We have 15 team members, and those team members work in 5 different areas. So first, we have Holly Hartley, who is in blue on the left, and she oversees benefits, compensation, and human resources information systems. Stephanie Hernandez, who is here today, in the pink and black, oversees our employment systems. Tamber Bostons, who is upper left, orange sweater, oversees learning and development. Labor and Employee Relations, that's a team effort. That includes Stephanie Darius Quinn, who is second from the top, second from the right. Also, Hillary Arthur, who works in our corporate counsel's office, provides support, and Jeff Dode from Fiscal Services and I participate in those efforts as well. And last but not least, Michelle Balcom, who is right below Darius in the team here. She oversees our retirement services, which includes pension, 457 plan, and retiree health care. So HR, similar to IT, we align most closely to the board's strategic priorities in terms of excellence in service delivery. The work that we do provides the infrastructure that county departments use to recruit and retain qualified staff to provide services to county residents. So we have 4 strategic goals in HR. The first goal, essentially it relates to making sure that we leverage continuous improvement. We always want to make sure that we're performing our work as efficiently and effectively as possible. Second, we want to make sure that our pay and benefit programs are sustainable, affordable, and competitive with market. Third, we want to make sure that we're doing the right things to be able to recruit and retain staff that provide critical services to county residents. And last, we want to make sure that we have systems in place to measure and to call attention if people are not experiencing our culture in a manner that's consistent with our stated values. So I've pulled a few performance metrics, and as we all look at what's happening right now, we're in the midst of what has informally been called the Great Resignation, right? We're experiencing a historically competitive labor market, and that's really going to be the primary focus of my presentation today, because it's the most important thing that we're faced with as an HR department. And in many ways, it's an important challenge that our county departments are dealing with as well. Okay, so one of the metrics that we look at and have been tracking for a while is voluntary turnover. You'll see that our goal is 5%, and for 2021, we did not meet the goal, and we were at 6% rate of turnover. There's a little bit of a longer-term story that I think might be helpful to tell as it relates to turnover. If you were to look at the long-term trend line, you'll see that there is an upward-facing trend. And part of that has to do with a slow recovery of the labor market over time. You remember the recession of 2009, it was kind of dubbed as the jobless recovery, right? So it took a long time for the job market to recover, but it did. And there was a correlation of turnover, it becoming greater as the job market recovers. If you look at rates of turnover in 2018 and 2019, at that point, you'll see that they're at a relatively high rate. I can remember in 2019 getting notices that we were in full recovery. The labor market was, unemployment, was at its natural lowest rate, and it was a 50-year event, right? Where where the labor market was at a 50-year level of being competitive, and that was a challenging time for us. And then COVID happened, and of course everybody hunkered down, right? So we saw a reduction in turnover when that occurred. But then in 2021, it's kind of a bifurcated year. The first half of 2021, we actually had relatively low rates of turnover, and the last half is when we started to see the turnover spike. So there's a little bit of a split story going on there. So that 6%, if you were to look at it just for the last half of the year, it would be even higher. So we are experiencing, I sat here in 2020 talking about 2019, how it was historically competitive. Well, 2021 is even more competitive, particularly the latter part of the year. We're dealing not only with a return to full employment levels in the economy, but on top of that, millions of people left the labor force in 2020, and a lot of those people are still out of the labor force. So it's a little bit of a double whammy and a significant challenge. This is a more complete view of turnover. In addition to resignations, retirements are another key part of the turnover story for us at Kent County. People who have been here for a while can retire after working for 25 years, and we have seen an increase in recent years as the labor market has been ultra competitive of people choosing to retire, and they have many options available to them, and that has also impacted our level of turnover. So the story is we're faced with these hyper-competitive, well, one more slide, I guess, before I get into that. This is a slide that's provided by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and what it shows is the number of unemployed people looking for work compared to the number of job openings. And if you look at April of 2022, you'll notice that for every person that there is unemployed looking for work, there are 2 employers looking to hire. It just gives you another kind of sense of what the job market is like and how difficult and competitive it is right now. So like every employer in the United States, we started to look at Kent County we're in a historically competitive situation. What is it that causes Kent County employees to choose us? They have lots of options. They could go anywhere. So starting in 2020, we started to survey new hires and ask them, why did you choose us? Why didn't you go elsewhere? And the top 3 reasons, number 1 is better benefit package. Number 2 is a reputation as being a good employer. And number 3 is people have a passion for public service and they choose us for that reason. So I would say collectively, those 3 things would constitute our employee value proposition today. So I think it's helpful for us to understand that as we look at how can we best be competitive in this labor market. Interestingly, when people leave the county, we ask the same question. Why did you come here in the first place? Same 3 reasons. It tells us that, at least historically, that value proposition has been relatively stable over time. Hasn't changed a whole lot. Okay. While our employee value proposition has been stable over time, one thing that is new to us is the importance of flexibility and work-life balance in the decisions that people are making. So this is one statistic that shows that we've been tracking exit interview survey results since 2014, and we've never seen flexibility work-life balance kind of have the prominent position that it does here. We also are starting to see that. Another thing that we track is the number of offers that we make that are rejected. And we're starting to see that just anecdotally as a trend in why people initially kind of start to look into Kent County and then they decide to either stay with their employer or go elsewhere, is because we oftentimes can't meet their demands for flexibility. One thing that we are looking to do I guess 2 things. The first is with our employee value proposition, I think we need to do a better job leveraging that and communicating that is what we have to offer. So there are opportunities for us to do that in job postings, in videos and advertisements and other types of medium. And we're working to do a better job of communicating where it is that we add value, which hopefully that will help us to connect more effectively with people who value what it is that we have to offer. The second thing I wanted to mention is we have made efforts to meet needs for flexibility. So in June of 2021, we instituted a procedure that allowed hybrid work. So as long as people were working at least 3 days a week on site and the department met certain specifications to track productivity and so on and so forth, departments had the option to allow hybrid work. So I think those things have helped. We are looking also at kind of in the future, how do we more sustainably institutionalize more flexible work? So we have brought together a cross-functional group that is planning in the summer to deploy training and other resources to help departments to more effectively engage not only in flexible work in terms of where people are working, but also in terms of when people are working. I think we really need to kind of break out of some of the paradigms of the past and get creative in order to meet the needs of the current workforce for flexibility, where we can. Because employee benefits are the number 1 thing that people mentioned draws them to Kent County, I did want to at least point out one metric that has to do with benefits. And so I pointed out one that, I pulled one that has to do with the pension, but I could have picked healthcare, I could have picked any of our benefit metrics, and the story would be the same. We offer benefits in a way that provides a great level of value. And that contributes most significantly to our employee value proposition, but we do it in a way that is affordable and sustainable. So our pension is 100% funded, or close to 100% funded. It has been since the dawn of time. That is the case because we are responsible and we're proactive. We use conservative actuarial assumptions. We fund the recommended actuarial contribution every year, and employees pay half of the cost for it. I'm not saying, the pension is of course, an unusual benefit for a public sector organization or a private sector organization to offer nowadays. And I'm not saying that the employee value proposition that we have today is the one that we have to have tomorrow. I think it's a responsible and appropriate thing to do to reevaluate that from time to time. But I also think we need to just make sure that we understand what the present state is and the possible implication as we look at what the future bears in store. I also wanted to mention that we are working, as it relates to benefits, we are working under Al's guidance to implement more choice for people in terms of health care. So we're looking at a high deductible health plan with health savings account component, and I think that will serve to further improve our employee value proposition as it relates to giving people a real meaningful choice in terms of health care offerings. Okay. The second element of the employee value proposition has to do with our reputation as being a good place to work. Our culture is a huge part of that, right? So we do measure, and we have been for the last couple of years, the extent to which people, as they're coming into the organization, experience us in a way that is consistent with our stated values. So it's a short-term measurement. We've only been measuring it since 2020, but so far, there is a very high rate of people, 94% or so, who are saying they at least agree or strongly agree that they're experiencing us in a way that is consistent with our stated values. I think we have a good culture. I think the initiative to implement the 6 C's from county administration will help us to arrive at a great culture. And I think that it's dead aligned with our employee value proposition and will make it even stronger. Okay. A few areas of accomplishments in 2021 or 2022. The first is we implemented a beta test of a targeted leadership development program. And we're beta testing it in IT, where, as we know, we have definitely a need for some succession planning per Tim's presentation, also at the Sheriff's Office in the Circuit Court. That program allows for survey-guided, competency-based development for people who aspire to first-line leadership roles, middle management roles, or top leadership roles. We plan to roll that out countywide in 2023. Second, this year we partnered with County Administration and Fiscal Services to implement a new process to assess requests for new positions as part of the budget planning process. We also, at the tail end of last year, we implemented a new software that makes the process easier for applicants to get through our reference checks. That not only reduced the drop-off of applicants, but it also improved the speed of our recruitment process. Also, at the tail end of last year, we implemented a new learning management system that will offer on-demand access to training and also will offer opportunity for us to provide more consistent and high-quality training in areas like systems training, safety training, legally required training, things like that. And then, of course, I already touched on the work that we're doing to promote workplace flexibility. Look ahead. We have 3 union contracts that are set to expire at the end of this year and 6 more that are set to expire at the end of next year. So work is currently underway to plan for the negotiation of those renewal agreements. Already talked about the targeted leadership development program that we're currently beta testing. We plan to deploy that countywide in 2023. At this point, with the high levels of turnover that we've seen, relatively speaking, in 2018, 2019, and 2021. It's all that we can do to just get through recruitments. So we have asked for a position that would allow us to focus more intentionally on sourcing, developing more of an online presence, developing more community partnerships, making sure that we're advertising and communicating opportunities more effectively, developing more intentionally developing opportunities for feeder programs for talent, like expanding on the effectiveness of internship programs and the prevalence of those, things like that. So our hope is that we can improve our efforts in that area in 2023 with that new position. We also are expanding the scope of the High Reach program, which is a program we've had in place since 2020 that focuses on making sure that we have validated inputs into the recruitment process, evidence-based recruitment. So we plan to add case management positions to that in the course of the next year. We're at the very beginning stages of a major significant HRIS upgrade that is intended to be completed within 12 to 18 months. already talked about workplace flexibility. And then last but not least, HR will play a more significant role in county administration's goals for improving employee well-being and recognition. I didn't want to, before I conclude, I didn't want to forget to thank the Human Resources team for their great work. 2021 was an interesting year. The first half was all about kind of COVID and continuing to deal with the challenges of that, and then we went right into the super competitive labor market. And the HR department has risen to that challenge and have served the county and its departments admirably over that time. So thank you so much, Stephanie and others. With that, happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you so much, Amy. Are there questions? Commissioner McLeod?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Amy, for that report. Very interesting information, and to see also that we're dealing with obviously everything that's going on in the rest of the country in terms of the labor force. So I just had a quick question in terms of the exit survey information that you had provided on slide 11. So the retirements make sense. You know, I know that there's a lot of people retiring this last year, but the other column was pretty high and there's no explanation for it. Could you expand on what's included in there?
Yeah, I did have a look because that got my attention as well. And it really was, there weren't any kind of themes that I could identify. It really was just kind of a compilation of different things. So I think we do probably need to have a closer look at the other and make sure that we've got enough categories. So if there are more selections that we need to make available to people, that we're reducing the prevalence of that other.
Okay, that'd be great if you could unpack that a little bit and maybe provide us with a little bit more information on what that actually is. So maybe there weren't any, top themes, but if there even were, 5 or 6 things that popped up, that would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, next, Commissioner Burrow.
Thank you, Chair Breeby. Amy, thank you. Appreciate it. With employee recognition, I'm just talking to other employers. I know we have something in the other room I was looking at as I was going to ask you this question. What are we currently doing? Has some of that gone away, obviously, as we were moving away from COVID? It's important that we do recognize employees, whether it's in their own department, whether it's at our level or at administration level. What are we currently doing to just keeping people encouraged and
it's an area that I think we're off to a good start in that we have resurrected a long-standing Employee of the Quarter program. And Darius Quinn and Human Resources and Al Vanderberg have worked together to bring that back. And I think it's next month that the first person in a couple of years will be recognized. But I think that's just a start, and I think there's a lot more that we can look at doing in the future to improve on that. I think the last couple of years have been hard on county employees, and I think that's an area where we can add a great deal of value in helping people to know how much we value the work that they do.
Okay, so I just got a couple other ones, Chair, if that's okay. So too, with the hybrid, obviously for somebody that would really struggle working at home like myself, and of course I always question that. I'm not saying there's not certain people that succeed and thrive at that. I'm assuming there's metrics, there's things that we can judge. Again, when we lose that human interaction 5 days a week, I think we're not taking that in consideration totally. But what kind of metrics where you can show folks like myself that need that? Because again, I know I couldn't do it. So you think nobody else can do it, but at the same time, what kind of things do we have out there to kind of show to the board or show to folks?
Well, a couple of things, and there's a little bit of a trade-off here because there are some things that I think are easy to measure. Maybe we already have systems in place, but what I wouldn't want to do is put in systems that are so onerous that we actually lose productivity because people are tracking their time in 15-minute increments or something like that. So what we do is we have a decentralized requirement that every department comes up with a plan, and that plan has to include an assessment of what are the outcomes and the outputs. So outputs are things like, I process this many requirements. Outcomes are things like, well, turnover was reduced by, 2%, So in management, it tends to be more outcome related, and kind of more line jobs, it tends to be more output related, but we do require every department to submit a plan to us for what it is they're going to measure, and we require them to explicitly communicate that to people. In the HR department, for instance, we have 5 different areas, and the outcomes or outputs are different for people based on the area that they work in. So it can be very specific to a role as well, but we do require that. So we require that the department identify, communicate, and track those things over time. There also are, interestingly, a lot of the things that result in really effective, sustainable hybrid work are the same things that make work effective when people are on site all the time. It's good leadership. But the role of the leader is critically more important in a situation where you can't see each other. There has to be an environment of trust, and if there isn't, I mean, then that whole system is not likely to succeed. So hybrid work isn't for everybody, even if it is possible. It isn't always advisable. If you've got a department where you don't have that environment where people are trusted and act in a way that is trustworthy, or if you've got an environment where the work just simply isn't conducive to that.
What's our current cash in lieu?
Can
Our cash in lieu, what's our current cash in lieu for folks that, for employees that choose cash in lieu of benefits?
Oh, it's relatively low. It's like, $15 a pay period, something. I can get it to you, but it's not that high. It is something that we, periodically look at, but, as we look at what we might get, we have a relatively high adherence rate where most of our employees, because our benefits are so valued, most of our employees do take the benefits. So we haven't historically seen where it would probably be financially in our best interest to offer a higher cash in lieu.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Breevy. Amy, thank you for being here today. In my travels and visit with other counties, other county officials across this country, I've never heard that Kent County is a bad place to work. And it's a reputation that we have. It comes from your leadership, but you've put together a great team that deliver not only services to the people, because we are a people-centered business, but we also deliver great services to the employees that deliver that. So hats off on that, and thank you to you and the whole staff. My question is really quick. When you brought up of what people are looking for when we hire them, flexibility is the thing that I hear constantly. Now, my definition of flexibility would be an hour off from work to go walk my dog.
Yeah.
It'd be different for Commissioner Coleman and others. So what does flexibility mean, and what is the scope of it? Because that can cover everything. It could be difficult.
And it really, because we have so many different departments and the nature of the work and what flexibility can mean, it varies significantly. So, for some departments where, let's say, the sheriff, they obviously can't do a jail with hybrid work, but we could look at things like, how much time off do people get? How can they use the time off? Can people swap shifts? They have a situation where people, their normal schedule, they only work half of the days, of their career instead of 5 of it every 7. I would say that's a form of flexibility, and probably one of the departments that offers naturally the least amount of flexibility. Initially, when we started to look at this, we were really focused on flexibility in place of where you work, but we also realized that flexibility in time is equally important. So, let's say we have a custodian. Historically, we would have said, well, you have to work, 8 to noon and 1 to 5. Well, so what if they want to take a couple hours in the afternoon and make that time up, as long as they can still get their job done effectively? It's a different way of looking at things than what we've historically done. And I think there's not a one-size-fits-all. It's really unique applications based on the type of work and the expectations for the job.
Thank you. Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I was very interested to hear what you said about the importance of the pension and the benefits, and I really think that's part of our culture, and that's one of the things that people value. And I know that millennials especially are, that's important to them as opposed to earlier groups. So I'm really glad to see, I mean, we're all proud of how well-funded our pension is, and I'm really glad to see that it's valued by people. And I know that pension, particularly for people, retention is the holy grail of employment. So I'm really glad that we've got that tool in our toolbox and that it's being valued. That's great news. I just want to know if you could maybe, Commissioner Coleman and I serve on the governing board for Michigan Work. So I was wondering if you could expand just a little bit more on the higher reach looking forward, because I know that's a really impressive program, and I just want to know if you could share a little bit more about that to the people here.
Sure, yeah. High Reach is a program that originally was initiated by Mercy Health, and they spent close to 10 years in an iterative process experimenting with evidence-based inputs to the hiring process, things like fit with personality, cognitive ability, a structured interview and scoring that, reference checks, so things that are validated to be predictors of success with certain jobs or certain job families. And the idea is, if you take some of the subjectivity out of the hiring process and you identify on the front end what the predictors of success are, and you use those as the primary basis for hiring decisions, then you're more likely to end up with a workforce where people are going to be successful in the jobs, and they're a good fit for the requirements of the job. And it removes some of the just natural biases that people have, and if somebody is charming in an interview, for instance, that doesn't mean that they're going to be a great accountant. It just means maybe you would like them. So it removes some of that kind of element from the whole process. We've been doing this since 2020. We started out doing it with clerical jobs and also corrections officers. We had more luck with clerical jobs than corrections. To be honest, I just don't think we got the inputs right for corrections, so we put that on hold. We are still focused on clerical jobs, and we're looking to expand that to jobs in case management next. With clerical jobs, we are at a point now where we are starting to look at some of the results of it, and we have seen, interestingly, an improvement in both diversity. So we have I think a 9% increase in racial diversity and a small increase in gender diversity. Where, as you might imagine, clerical jobs are primarily filled by women, and we have seen a small increase in the proportion of men that are filling those roles as well since we implemented High Reach.
Yeah, to me, it's just so impressive that not only do you organically improve your diversity, but you get better fits, which also means longer retention. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks.
That was a good question. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you. Charming in the interview, but can they do the job? Sounds like politicians. So my question is about, it's great to hear kind of the decentralized approach to some of the decision making. I think that's so smart. Is it possible, so I don't think the technology exists that the sheriff could hire somebody for road patrol if they want to continue to live in Texas, right? But Tim could hire someone that's an expert in systems integration that wants to continue to live in Texas. Is that type of thing enabled by that decentralized departmental planning?
Yeah, I think it's possible. It isn't something that we're doing today. I had mentioned that in a hybrid work environment, the requirements for leadership are higher. That, good leadership becomes even more important. If you get to a situation where somebody is working entirely remotely, the requirements for leadership, they ratchet up even more significantly. So I think that's something that I would just as soon kind of get to the point where I feel like we're really doing workplace flexibility in a hybrid way well, and then look at that as the next step, just because of the extra requirements to make sure that teams are effective, that people are included, and those things become even more of a challenge.
All right, Commissioner Hennessy.
This was an interesting report. I appreciate it. I'm under your significant accomplishments. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more on the new process to assess requests for new positions that's
Yeah.
being implemented, and what kind of criteria you're looking at, and
Well, we have, gosh, off the top of my head, I think it's like 12 or so criteria, but the fit with the board's priorities, the impact on the general fund, and the extent to which the position is funded externally, the impact to customer service. What else? I can get you a list of the criteria. I can't remember them all offhand, but I brought together a group that includes representation from county admin, fiscal services, and myself, and collectively we arrived at the criteria. But they generally have to do with the impact on the general fund, customer service, the tie to board priorities, things like that. That the odds that the position will still be needed in a couple years, the duration of the position is another thing we looked at. But if you'd like, I can get you kind of the full list of criteria.
for so many years, we've operated on no expansion.
Yeah.
And I know that there's probably, a pent-up demand for new employees and expanded employee workforce in many of our departments, given the growth that we're seeing. And so I've really been curious as to what we're doing this and, how we're doing this, and especially what the budget implications are, given the benefit structure, given the longevity that our employees tend to have. I'm really, it's one thing to just look at, okay, we're going to, with animal control, we're going to add this much to the budget for next year. But what does it mean when you look 5 years out, when you look 10 years out, in terms of the whole pay benefit structure?
Yeah.
Are you looking at that?
Yeah, and that is I think a question that would be, the answer might be a shared answer, including county administration and fiscal services. Al, I don't know if you would want to field that?
Yeah, I do. I think that to some extent we're reactive right now as far as positions go. Even talking to Amy, how many positions were cut in HR during the Great Recession?
7.
7, and how many have been restored?
None.
Now, I would say that the Great Recession wasn't all bad, because there were some things that made us think sharper and cut back in areas where we don't need to recover. But I would argue that we have not recovered in Kent County even some of the functionality that we had back in 2008. And HR is one of those examples where we'd want to add a position back this year to help to deal with the realities of the competitive workforce environment that we're finding ourselves in, but also restore some functionality that's been gone since those cuts were made. And then I look at where we ended up with the district judge and the probate judge. Overwhelming statistics that indicate we need those judges, and then that, of course, that has associated staff. The sheriff and I have talked many times, and the undersheriff, and we're moving forward with a sheriff staffing study, because I think that, again, the sheriff does a great job and is well attuned to the needs that she has, but for a lot of other people, it's like, whoa, we need more positions here and here. What is it? I guess what I'm saying is, long-term, I want to get a whole lot more scientific about what we need, why we need it, and then it comes down to choices if we don't have the resources to do everything. So obviously, it'd be good to know, what is the caseload that really triggers a new judge? And then what is the activity that the sheriff has for a deputy that triggers adding a deputy because we added that new judge? And the prosecutor, what is that activity in the district court level that triggers the addition of a new prosecutor if we add a new judge? So it's going to take a while to get there, but that's one of the things I would like to, I'm still thinking through, but I want to launch it this year, is get some of our staff working on that view of our workforce. So when we bring you something, it isn't as reactionary, we aren't as far behind the 8 ball, and we can hopefully keep up and at least be more aware of what we need to do the job right.
I appreciate that, because, you're talking the activity level too, so it's, you're really looking at the performance reports we're getting, you're looking at, what is the capabilities, what is the activity level, what's happening, looking at, the trends for use. I think taking a holistic type of approach to this will be useful for us. That's somewhat what we're trying to achieve by the way in which we bring our departments in here to talk to us.
Right.
Yeah, I forgot to mention initially that kind of the power of metrics in support of the need for the position is also one of the factors that we look at. So we do pull in the metrics that departments report that, that measure their success, and we do evaluate that as part of their position request as well.
All right, any further questions or comments? Thank you for your report today, Amy. Next item on the agenda comes from the Sheriff's Office. It's a request to add 1 lieutenant and 2 sergeants to supervise animal control.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to add 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeant positions, 2 additional vehicles, and to transfer $676,159 from the Administrator's 2022 contingency budget and appropriate $4,175 of estimated fee revenue to the Sheriff's 2022 general fund budget. The Sheriff is requesting the addition of 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 2 patrol vehicles to supervise animal control operations. This will effectively transfer countywide animal control operations and supervision from the Health Department to the Sheriff and increase the level of training, enforcement, investigative techniques, community outreach, and media relations. Implementation of the transfer will be tentatively effective July 1, 2022. The annual cost for the lieutenant is $150,812, and the annual cost for 2 sergeants is $260,560. This request is to transfer 50% or $205,686 of those costs, as the positions will only be filled 1/2 of the current year. 2 additional vehicles are required for these 3 positions. The cost of the 2 vehicles, $108,500, will be absorbed in the Sheriff's 2022 general fund budget. In addition to the position costs noted above, the following costs are included in the request: $185,380 of 4th quarter operational expenses moved from the Health Department budget to the Sheriff's budget, $146,278 transfer of 6 existing ACO vehicles to the Sheriff, and $142,990 equipment, body cameras, consoles, and uniforms.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner Kallman. Is there support? Is it Commissioner LeGrand? Commissioner LeGrand, supported by Commissioner LeGrand. All right, questions or comments? I know we had a work session on this. Hopefully a lot of your questions were answered, but if you have more, please ask. Commissioner LeGrand.
First of all, I want to thank you for the work session. It was really informative. I really learned a lot that I thought was valuable. And Al, one of the things that you kind of hid in that work session, which I thought was the most interesting, was that this used to be in the Sheriff's Department and got moved out. Kind of reminds me of what you were just saying about, a backlog of demand and not keeping track. Like, it could have been there all along, and we wouldn't be doing this right now. So I think that was really eye-opening for me, and I'm all in favor. Thanks.
All right, any other questions? Commissioner Ponstein.
Just a quick one. Al, appreciate your work on that. I wasn't at the work session. I had flexibility problems, so. My only question is, and I didn't ask it, it just hit me now, 2 additional vehicles. What will those vehicles look like? Just the regular cars, or where you open the door and let the dog in? Come on, you with me? Or is it gonna be more
I'm going to let the Sheriff handle that one.
right up front with the deputy? I don't.
So those vehicles will be driven by the command staff, so one of the vehicles will be outfitted as a full patrol vehicle. The sergeant will drive it around. There will be times they'll be responding to calls for service where they might have to take a dog into custody, just like we do today in our regular vehicles, but largely they're not intended to transport animals.
All right, Commissioner Skaggs.
Chair, if you could just stay up there, Sheriff.
It's a hoping, right?
First off, I'm really grateful that the ordinance is going to, emphasize civil infractions and hope that we can really work on taking corrective action first before we move to criminal enforcement actions. Obviously, if there's, a real serious event, we'll need to move through those very quickly. So I think that's great news. Again, we're now focusing in on cars. But I will continue with what will be my unrelenting barrage in the last 6 months here, which is, boy, this sounds like a great opportunity to move to an electric vehicle for one of these vehicles. If it's not out on patrol all the time, and it is a command car, seems like it might be a good chance to pilot that program and move us in that direction.
And you and I have had a number of conversations regarding that, and I do think that is the group of vehicles that at some point could evolve into an electric car or hybrid car approach. So I'm open-minded to that. As you know, as of yet, the infrastructure isn't in place, and so we do have some geographical constraints. We put a large number of miles on vehicles during a day or a shift. So being able to make sure you're in the right place at the time it needs a charge and have the time to do that is going to be a significant factor in our consideration. Detective vehicles are the other ones that we've talked about that, at some point we can plan forward and maybe consider doing that.
Yeah, I just think that at some point could be soon. I'm looking at Al, so that we have that infrastructure. I mean, look, it's about $1,500 to put it into a person's private residence too. So I know we talked about some of the difficulties that people are taking those cars home, and we may just find that it's cost effective to even help them out with their garage charger.
I look at that as a challenge, not so much a difficulty. We can work through some of those things, but you do need to make sure it's a balance and practicality given the number of miles driven, the opportunity for an interrupted rest period, like patrol. Obviously, it's very difficult because I don't know when they're going to have downtime. I don't know how long that downtime is going to be, and I don't know where their last call for service is going to be within some reasonableness. But, there are other vehicles that we have in our fleet absolutely would work well with an electric vehicle
Great.
approach. Yep.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Kallman.
Thank you so much. I don't really have a question, just really a comment on the process around this change. I just thought it was exceptionally good. I think whether or not the board ends up agreeing with a particular issue, I think the approach taken here with a strong proposal with lots of information, from my perspective, very well organized information. So I just want to commend Administrator Vanderberg and the whole team. I think this is how this process should work. A great example of it, so thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you. Seeing none, all those in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Okay, our next item on the agenda comes from the Board of Commissioners office, and we have appointments to various boards.
Action requested. Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to appoint John Campbell to the Network 180 Board to fill the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending December 31, 2023, to appoint Hattie Patterson to the Kent County Finance Authority to fill the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending December 31, 2024, and to appoint Michael Verhouse to the Gerald R. Ford International Airport Authority to fill the remainder of an unexpired 3-year term ending December 31, 2023. Midterm vacancies have occurred on the Community Mental Health Authority Board, Network 180, the Kent County Hospital Finance Authority, and the Gerald R. Ford International Airport Authority Board. Solicitation took place to fill the vacant board positions. For the Community Mental Health Authority Board, vacancy, an interview team consisting of Commissioners Emily Breavy, who chaired the team, Lindsay Thiel, and Michelle McLeod reviewed applications. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners appoint John Campbell for the remainder of a 3-year term expiring December 31, 2023. For the Hospital Finance Authority vacancy, An interview team consisting of Commissioners Emily Breavy, who chaired that team, Lindsay Thiel, and Michelle McLeod reviewed applications. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners appoint Hattie Patterson for the remainder of a 3-year term expiring December 31, 2024. For the Gerald R. Ford International Airport Authority Board, an interview team consisting of Commissioners Emily Breavy, who chaired that team, Matt Coleman, and Michelle McLeod reviewed applications. It is recommended that the Board of Commissioners appoint Michael Verhouse for the remainder of a 3-year term expiring December 31, 2023. The interview teams are recommending the appointments of the candidates noted above.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion? Moved by Commissioner McLeod. Is there support? Support by Commissioner Coleman. All right, questions or comments on these appointments? Commissioner Skaggs.
So I'm going to go ahead and vote for these people, but I do think that we missed an opportunity here. I think that opportunity was the last time that former Commissioner Korndike's appointment came up. We had a lengthy discussion about the importance, or relative importance, of having a county commissioner, a third county commissioner on the board. I think we had an opportunity here to slide over Commissioner Korndike over to this spot that we're appointing and move a county commissioner on board. I think with many of these, I think the arguments have all been laid out before. It's important to have democratic oversight over all of these boards that we have spun off. And while I think there's some good decisions that have been made here, I think it would have been more beneficial to have worked for a way to have additional commissioners on the board. I know we talked about that when we voted on Commissioner Korndike's reappointment. So I think this was an opportunity that's missed, but I look forward to voting for these individuals to be on these boards.
All right, any other questions or comments on these appointments? Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I first of all, really grateful as a member of the Network 180 board to have someone else serving. So that's really great. We just had our first new person yesterday. We were really down. But I would actually like to echo Commissioner Skaggs' comments because we are down a commissioner on Network 180 as well. And given that this was at one point completely a county service, we really need to make sure that we have strong commissioner representation. Commissioner Burrell and I were out at the airport for a fascinating tour a couple weeks ago, and the extent of public interest, public involvement, public ownership. We still own the land that airport is on. I really think we need more commissioners. So in the future, I really hope we can work towards that goal. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Ponstein.
So, yeah, just to add to Commissioner LeGrand's remarks on that. So, yeah, I'm one of the commissioners that had to step down, and we talk about flexibility in our workforce. I mean, a committee that meets from like 3:45 to 6:30 at night, if you work second shift, you just cannot make those meetings. So, that vacancy is the one that I stepped down from. But I just want to say the choice of John Campbell is outstanding. Retired law enforcement. He served on his mental health board on the county when he was a county commissioner down there. Very active in the statewide association. So he is going to be a great asset, and I'm just happy that he decided to move to Kent County and make this his home now. So thanks.
Yeah, I served on Network 180 in the past, and it's a very it's a wonderful board. It's very interesting to be part of, and I think every commissioner should take an opportunity to serve in that capacity and have a better understanding. So if, there's commissioners looking for a place to get involved, I highly recommend, joining the Network 180 board. I think your colleagues on the board would be very appreciative of that, and, it'd be a good place to get plugged in. Any other questions or comments? Another comment that I have too is, we had a good number of applicants and a good variety of people of different backgrounds, and I was really appreciative of the high quality applicants that we had for the airport board. I have, seen several people in my role in my personal life hiring for our business and, just answering questions, asking questions. It was really great to meet some of these people. And I think we also found some gems hidden in the applications too, of people that would be really, that would serve really well on other boards and committees. And hopefully we can direct them to apply, in the future, because I think there's a number of people that are ready to serve here in Kent County and ready to serve their communities. So I'm happy with the people that we've received so far. So with that, if there's no further comment or questions, let's have a vote. So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. On to our next item on the agenda is from the Sheriff's Office. It's the 911 plan adoption. It's in there.
Ah, here we go. All right, very good. Action requested, recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the adoption of the updated 911 plan as a tentative plan. The Kent County Board of Commissioners formally adopted the current 911 plan in 1986 pursuant to Public Act 32 of that same year. Since then, several amendments to the plan have been adopted dealing with the establishment of secondary public service answering points, which are called PSAPs. The plan needs to be updated in its entirety to reflect changes in technology, specifically the introduction of Next Generation 911 that uses internet-based protocols to route not just voice but also text messages, images, and video through the network and on to first responders. Adopting the proposed 911 plan as a tentative plan starts a formal process leading to a public hearing and then adoption with any revisions as the final plan. The formal process is described within the proposed 911 plan document and is consistent with state statute. The sheriff has reviewed and approved the updated 911 plan.
All right, thanks, Al. Is there a motion for this item? Moved by Commissioner Ponstein. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Hennessy. All those that have questions, please ask. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Kallman.
Noticed a minor typo, and I apologize. I meant to send this in a couple days ago, and probably my flexible work arrangement got interrupted by a child, and so I apologize for not sending it. But I guess it's page 28 of the packet, section 6, the is missing a T in that first line there. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Commissioner Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I did not find a typo. Page 32 of 57 in the middle there. I assume that this is just us giving ourselves an opening here, but it does say if the millage revenues are insufficient to cover the cost of financing the sheriff's office, PSAP, that we have other options. There's no indication that that the millage and the surcharge is insufficient to cover the cost of financing.
We have Sheriff Michelle LaJoy Young here to join us.
It actually doesn't cover all of the cost even today, but it's not intended to. There's actually two surcharges that are in place, 45 cent, which has been in place for a number of years, and then more recently, the 70-cent surcharge that was added. Those together only make up a percentage of the cost of dispatch between the city of Grand Rapids and the county. The rest is provided for fees for service from many of the agencies to the sheriff's office or out of our general fund allotment from the sheriff's office. I couldn't give you the percentage, but it's a significant amount that isn't paid for.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. I'm really excited about the idea that you could send text, not just text, but images, which seems so incredibly useful to get to an emergency responder. Can you just talk a little bit more about what these internet protocols mean? What's that going to mean in the real world?
Well, I mean, on a really broad scale, it connects 911 centers throughout the United States, different than it had been in the past because they were a switched line mechanism. So they really only had, if you could picture like a big center in the middle with lines to it, that was all that was possible. All points came back to a central location. It was switched to this center or that center, which made even backup centers less possible. So with this being a network now, being able to send more capacity, obviously it has more capacity to do different types of data, but it also has a more fluid path that can be directed and more information that can even just follow the call as you're sending it. So pictures are a really good example. Streaming video has been implemented in some places, although capacity is gonna have to be a factor that we consider. We've turned on text to 911 at the sheriff's office. They're still working on some details of that for the city, but we're able to receive text messages even now. And this technology has been implemented about 18 months already. We obviously had to get it up, and you have other equipment that needs to receive the information, so there's still more work to be done, but it really does change the way that we look at 911 services, and it also reduces cost pretty significantly on a bigger scale because of the technology that's being implemented. So it's a win-win-win.
Great to hear. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you. Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is Commissioner Miscellaneous. Is there any Commissioner Miscellaneous? We have a work session, so Commissioner Hennessy.
10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, and I'll just make note that this is the time of the last Mass at St. James Church, which is on Bridge Street and has been a mainstay of the, the Catholic community on the west side. And at 9:30 even, I had a little text come through that can't find a place to park. So I think that there are a lot of people who are taking note and remembering this for the last Mass.
Any other questions or Commissioner Miscellaneous? Seeing none, we are adjourned until our June 21st meeting at 8:30 a.m. here in this room, and you need like 10 minutes or so?
Yeah, but 10 minutes would be great. 5, 10 minutes.
5-10 minutes, and come back here for our work session. Thank you. What's that? More coffee. No. I have to leave by like 11:20 to go pick up my children from tennis. It's 10:08.
11:20, you should have kept this moving.